Hello and welcome back to Top of the Props, a brand new weekly football betting show which focuses on the markets away from the main markets in football. Think offsides, shots, goal kicks, fouls, tackles, throw-ins, cards, etc. Scott, we landed a fairly big one last week, didn't we?
Yeah, 14-1. It was a good bet all along. We would do a little bit of luck in this one, to be honest, because as you say, the props have been performing well elsewhere, but then we've gone for something different in these videos, and it really did pay dividends last week, and hopefully more of the same. Valverde, we're not going in back on him, but he was heavily involved in that El Clasico. So yeah, hopefully we've got some more winning angles here, and there's certainly a big list of games again.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there. Valverde really did sort us out, and the offsides as well. We could have even gone a bit bigger and took to the bigger prices, considering he racked up a few fouls and tackles, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was 3 fouls and 4 tackles in the end, but it was quite comfortable. I remember paying out fairly early anyway, so.
Nice and easy. Right, we've got 3 games to go through today. We're going to start on the FA Cup final, obviously the biggest game in England, on the Saturday. Then we're going to go to Arsenal v Newcastle, also a pretty big game in the Premier League in the fight for second. And then we're going to go back to Italy for the third bet. So, Scott, we'll start with the FA Cup final. Palace versus Manchester City, probably one of the biggest days in Crystal Palace's history. And I'll probably speak for most neutrals when I say that pretty much the whole of the footballing world would love a Palace win, bar maybe Brighton and all those teams fighting for eighth place as well. Because if Palace win, obviously they get Europe, and the teams fighting for eighth are no longer fighting for a European qualification in that eighth spot. So in terms of a bet, what have you got?
Oh, this is probably the most boring one that I could possibly take. We're back in under 32.5 throw-ins and under 32.5 tackles. So under 32.5 on both lines, and it's priced at 2.87 at the moment. And unfortunately, it's one of those where you're going to watch the FA Cup final and just hoping for a really cagey affair. The numbers are very, very good in this. The bet has won in the last 4 head-to-heads between the teams, an average of 26.75 tackles and 28.75 throws in that period. So quite comfortably below the 32.5 required here. The April meeting, so very recently, 22 tackles and 26 throws. Again, even more comfortable. And I think the occasion will actually add to the caginess. I think unders actually looks a better bet because it's an FA Cup final. I couldn't
Hmm.
find the stats on Crystal Palace's last FA Cup final, which was 2016 against Manchester United. Nobody seemed to have recorded the tackles for them. But I figure City have been involved in the last two. Manchester derby, you'd think, oh, that's going to be a fiery game. Lots of tackles flying in and throw-ins, a result of tackles. But it wasn't the case. And both finals were close. Obviously, City winning 1-2-1 and losing 1-2-1. And this game, Palace can be competitive, but City could easily be 2 goals up in half an hour and they coast. But anyway, the two most recent FA Cup finals, 23 tackles and 24 throws last season. In 2022-23, 30 tackles and 26 throws. So we're not even getting to within one of this line losing, really. And it just looks like a good bet, given there's such a big game for both teams, and City do have the superior quality. They need silverware this season. Not winning silverware is simply not an option really for a club and like Man City and a manager like Pep Guardiola. I know obviously he's not going to be sacked for not winning silverware given his track record, but it really would be a bitterly disappointing season. So I think we'll see a cagey start where City are capable of scoring when the game is cagey. We see them win games all the time. Well, fairly regularly this season. They're not at their brilliant best, and the opposition are still sort of trying to grow into it, and they've got the magic to score, especially with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. It's basically the last big game for Man City. They've got the difference makers. I just think it will be quite a cagey and I wouldn't say boring to watch, but not as exciting as maybe some are hoping.
I could definitely get on side with an FA Cup final being cagey, but the recent meetings between these two clubs, like it's just seen loads and loads of goals. Obviously, the 5-2 in April, not too long ago, 2-2 before that, 4-2 before that, 2-2 before that. In one, two, three, in 5 of the last 6 games, I think there's been 4 or more goals. So something has to give. But yeah, I would probably lean to this towards this being more cagey than not. In terms of like the under throws and the under tackles, cashing in FA Cup finals quite regularly. Do you think that's because it is cagey and teams aren't willing to like enter into duels or take risks? So a lot of the time it's like passing along the back four or being safe in terms of like pass selection.
I think the fact it's an FA Cup final is a contributing factor, but the numbers I've mentioned, City are involved in both. It says a lot of the way City play the game, to be honest. And as you mentioned, the head-to-heads between Palace and City of late have seen plenty of goals, and that's why I was quite shocked to go back through the numbers and see there's been barely any tackles and barely any throw-ins when the goals have just been flying in. You sort of associate chaos in terms of a scoreline with chaos in terms of actions within the game,
Yeah.
so it was quite surprising.
Yeah, exactly. 7 goals last time, and for there to be like hardly any throw-ins, it doesn't really compute, does it? Really, when you picture like because it was quite end to end as well, for periods, and then City kind of started when Palace went 2-0 up. City kind of started to dominate. But yeah, okay, so that's under 32.5 throws and under 32.5 tackles at 2.87 for one unit in the FA Cup final, and that's on Saturday afternoon at 4:30 UK time. So yeah, Palace are the big underdogs there, 4.5. City are the 1.75 favourites. If you had a gun to your head, where would you go?
I think City will win it. I think
Yeah.
you'd fancy them even if they were challenging on all fronts like they usually are in the business end of the season. But this has basically been what they've playing for a while. I know they've obviously got to secure Champions League football as well, but this is the prize for City. It's been the focus for quite some time. They've had a fairly straightforward path to the final, but we know they can rise to the big occasion. They won't fret over this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really hope Palace give a good account of themselves though, because they've definitely got something in that team which City don't quite agree with stylistically, maybe because they do often get a lot of joy against City. So fingers crossed they can find the net, and this could be a pretty intriguing spectacle to watch. Right then, we'll move on to our next game of the show: Arsenal versus Newcastle. Scott, what's the bet in this one?
Yeah, this is another interesting one. I think it's a fairly big game as well. I know both pretty much guaranteed Champions League football at this point, but Arteta certainly want to keep hold of second place. Newcastle will really, really want second place. It's like an ego thing, isn't it? And Arsenal
Mhm.
haven't been involved in the Champions League. They're back to one game a week, since being beaten by PSG, and I think this is a massive one. You saw that with Arsenal last weekend at Anfield. They could have easily rolled over 2-0 down. I know they kind of still need the points, but at that stage, you'd usually think, oh, that this one's done if, you're not competing for trophies, but I just don't think that will be the case here. So I've gone for over 1.5 tackles for Jacob Murphy and over 0.5 fouls for Miles Lewis-Skelly. The thinking behind this one is that Lewis-Skelly is chaos, and
Yeah.
Newcastle have decided to use a different formation. I don't see them deviating from that. They used a 3-4-3 against Chelsea, and it worked to really, really good effect. And Jacob Murphy actually dropped a wing back there. I know Chelsea made it easier by getting a send off in the first half,
Mhm.
but Newcastle started quickly and they were playing very well before that. So I think it's harsh to put it down to that. But in terms of fouls and tackles, Lewis Skelly is winning plenty of fouls, and the opposition are getting plenty of tackles against him. In his last 11 Premier League games, the opposition. Yeah, sorry, he's been fouled an average of 3 times per game, and he's also been tackled an average of 2.7 times per game. So we've sided with tackles here purely on the price basis, to be honest. But Jacob Murphy being there is a massive factor because he offered so much going forward as well. But he didn't shirk away from the defensive side of the game against Chelsea. He made 2 tackles and got dribbled past twice. Before that, his tackle numbers are very sporadic. Again, it's about the change in formation, really. Hence why we've gone for a little bit of a longer odds bet and made it a smaller stake. So we're sort of mitigating that risk just in case Eddie Howe does decide to shuffle the pack again. Um, Lewis Skelly himself, his fouls are also sporadic, but he has made a foul in 4 of his last 6 Premier League games. And the most recent meeting between the sides at the Emirates, he did actually make a foul against Murphy there. Murphy was playing right wing. Murphy also made a foul, coincidentally, no tackles on that day, but he should be a lot deeper here. And the fact that we'll have Murphy on one side along with Gordon or Barnes, there'll be sort of 2 players doubling up down that flank for Arsenal if Eddie Howe decides to play with the same formation, obviously. So I think Lewis Skelly's going to be a busy man, and the fact he's marauding forward gives him space to cover, and he'll make a foul. So Murphy tackles on the basis that Eddie Howe plays a 3-4-3, and Lewis Skelly's pretty good for a foul anyway, especially when he's playing quality players like Newcastle possess. Newcastle have two of the most foul players in the Premier League within their ranks. You could see Anthony Gordon shift over to that side, and he's the third most foul player in the Premier League. And the fact that Lewis Skelly, sometimes finds himself in midfield, he could be up against Buda Kamara, who's the most foul player in Europe's top five leagues. So yes, it looks an interesting bet at 4.33. It's definitely one I'm willing to take. It's a risk, but we're mitigating that with a smaller stake and a bigger price.
Okay, so just to be clear, if Newcastle don't line up with a 3-4-3 like they did against Chelsea, this is a bet to cash out or not place.
Yes, yeah, I'd say purely on the basis of the tackles. Maybe you'd go in for Murphy to have a foul and Lewis Skelly to have a foul at a shorter price,
Yeah.
potentially. But I quite like the longer odds here on the tackles because I think it's very, very good value if they do play that 3-4-3.
Okay, it's interesting you say that as well, Murphy to pick up a foul because, and you said it before, Lewis Skelly is chaos, really, isn't he? Like, especially in possession, him winning fouls is like such a big part of his game to like alleviate the pressure on his team. Like I see him do it all the time, like put his body in between the ball and the man and just kind of flop to the floor. He does it a lot, so I'm guessing he does rack up quite a lot of fouls. And yeah, like you said, he backs himself, so he is more than willing to go man for man with a winger, go stride for stride with him, put a tackle in. So like he's always going to be up for tackles and fouls. So yeah, I really like this, and at a pretty big price as well. Scott, 4.33 for half a unit. So yeah, that looks good. And should also mention Arsenal and Newcastle, there is absolutely no love lost between them two. Like they don't like each other. Looking at I took a bet on cards earlier and looking at the 3 games they played this season, there've been 5 cards, 4 cards, and 8 cards. Obviously, they met twice in the EFL Cup semi-final. So a lot of cards. I'm guessing a lot of fouls, a lot of tackles. Arguments going to be a bit niggly. They got, like you said, Bruno Guimaraes in there, who is just crazy in terms of fouls for and against. So it should be a pretty good game.
The free kick line, actually, I just wrote one about that, is 23.5 at the time of writing with Bet365. And I know neither is playing for nothing apart from that second place, but I think that's a sufficient prize. In the reverse fixture, saw 36 fouls. So 23.5 looks very, very low.
That's a
Landed
big
in
jump.
it landed in one of the League Cup legs, but Cup games generally see less free kicks anyway. But the league meeting, very, very good.
Why is that so low then? Do you think it's because there's not too much on the line? Or the second is a pretty big dangling carrot, really.
I think so. I think Arsenal sort of need to finish second because it'll be almost humiliating. People take the mick if they don't when they second, not
Yeah.
finishing second in a two-horse race. Effectively, we've all did it before. But for Newcastle, that really really shows they're competitive again, doesn't it? And I think that would be a massive sort of boost for them ahead of what should probably be a busy summer. You'd think
Yeah.
they'd look to bring in some more reinforcements. Yeah, sorry, 34 fouls in the reverse fixture as well. Just double checking, but anyway, well above the 23.5 that the Bet365 offering, and obviously includes offsides as well.
That is interesting. And I suppose you could also pair that up with like a player foul too, couldn't you? Like take a lower foul line and then pair it up with like a player foul. I know they're kind of like
They
mutually.
correlate, but you get a decent price. You do normally get a decent price on things like that. So yeah, it's you could probably get around 21.5 in a Lewis Skelly file. In fact, I'll check it while I'm here now. So at the moment, it is priced at 2.15 for a Lewis Skelly foul and over 21.5 free kicks. That's pretty good.
I'm probably gonna have to take something like that. Yeah, that's inviting.
We might as well spread that for a unit now we've done it. That looks a great bet as well.
Yeah,
That's
that's
happening
really good.
regardless of formations.
Yeah,
2.15.
we'll do that. Okay, so yeah, quickly recap those two, Scott, please, and we'll move on to Italy.
Okay, so it's over 1.5 tackles for Jacob Murphy and over 0.5 fouls for Lewis Skelly, and that's a 4.33, and we'll take half a unit there. Be mindful of the formation for that one. We're looking for a 3-4-3 from Newcastle. And then the one we've just taken in prop to is over 21.5 free kicks in the match, and Lewis Skelly to make at least one foul, and that's a 2.15. And we'll have a unit on that one.
Lovely stuff. Right then, over to Syria. this is the penultimate match day over in Italy, just like it is in the Premier League. Juventus versus Udinese. We touched on Juventus under Igor Tudor last week, and we are going for something very similar again.
Yeah, we got burned on it last week. To be honest with you, it looked like the type of game that would really set it up. But I think because of what we've seen over Tudor's tenure so far, that was very much a blip. Both the centre midfielders got carded. They should have been more heavily involved. They just didn't make any clean tackles. Obviously, Opta's specification is very, very clear. It's very, it needs to be very particular for a tackle. I think it's fair. Before we get into that debate, I do think Opta's pretty fair with the tackle sort of the way they highlight it. But yeah, Locatelli didn't make any, but we're going to back him to make amends for that here. Juventus have drawn their last two. They're now level on points with Lazio, one ahead of Roma. They need to win, get back to winning ways here. They had two difficult games, admittedly, but this is a real crunch time for them. Penultimate game, exactly. And the trend under Igor Tudor has been tackles, still averaging over 17 tackles per game under Tudor, which is about two more than they were under Thiago Motta. So quite a lot. And we're going to back Kefren Turam to have at least a foul, and then Locatelli to make at least two tackles and have a foul, and that's priced at 3.0, and we'll take half a unit on that. The thinking here, Turam has made a foul in 6 of his 7 games under Tudor, an average of 1.71. Locatelli last week only making one tackle, but he's made at least 3 in the other 6, so 6 out of 7 under Tudor, he's made 3. We're looking for two here. His tackle average is 3.57 per game under the new boss. So 2 is very doable. You've got to put that Lazio game down as a blip. In terms of numbers against Udinese, last week the 3 centre mids that started against them made 4 tackles and 4 fouls accumulated. But obviously those are more packed midfield, and the fact that the Juve boys have been asked to cover more ground and just they've been so aggressive under Tudor, I think those numbers could increase. The reverse fixture, very different approach under Thiago Motta. Turam made 1 tackle, 0 fouls. Okay, didn't get his foul there, but as I say, very different approach. Locatelli, on the other hand, though, 4 tackles and 3 fouls, so he was very much the busy man in that midfield. So 3.0, given the data, under Tudor, given the fact it's a massive game, I'm not going to let last week put me off. I think it's still a very good betting angle.
Yeah, completely agree. Makes sense. I clicked on the game last week to check to see how the bet went. Saw Locatelli and Thuram have been carded. I thought surely we're in here, and then saw Juventus had a red card as well. Then just expected that midfield to be kind of overloaded and then to be racking up fouls and tackles. But yeah, it just wasn't to be last week. But I really like it. Again, this is a massive game for Juventus at home in front of home support. I'm guessing it's their final game of the season. They are still level on points with Lazio, just behind them in 5th. Juventus are in the final Champions League spot. Roma 2 points behind. 1 point behind, sorry, and Bologna 2 points behind. So they could quite easily drop out of the Champions League reckoning this week. So I'm guessing it's going to be, again, in front of home support, pretty full-blooded. And hopefully those 2 lads in the middle of the park can get us some fouls and tackles. That would be very nice. So that's it, Scott. So I'll quickly run. Well, you can quickly run through your bets for the week, and then we'll get out of it.
Yeah, we're going to take Palace vs City FA Cup final, under 32.5 throws and under 32.5 tackles at 2.87. That's for 1 unit. And then Arsenal versus Newcastle, over 1.5 tackles for Murphy and over 0.5 fouls for Miles Lewis-Skelly. That's at 4.33, and we're taking half unit there. And then we added over 21.5 free kicks in that match and a foul for Lewis-Skelly at 2.15, and we'll take a unit there. Lastly, in Italy, we're taking, in Juventus versus Udinese, I should say, over 0.5 fouls for Kefren Turam and over 0.5 fouls and over 1.5 tackles for Manuel Locatelli, and that's a 3.0, half a unit.
Perfect. So we were plus 1.95 units up last week. All the profit and loss is going to be in the description below underneath the YouTube channels, the YouTube video, sorry, and we'll continue that every single week. And if you are going to use any of the bets on this show, then please do remember to gamble responsibly. And yeah, that's us. So we'll see you again next week, maybe on Thursday again. And yeah, thanks a lot, Scott.
Oh, it won't be no show next week. No show next week. I'm off, and I'm off.
No
No, no.
show next
Got a
week.
got a Europa League final to get to.
Okay, Scott's in Bilbao. So yeah, blame Scott for not getting your props fixed next week. But yeah, that'll be good fun. How are you getting there again? You're not
Oh,
going conventionally,
a
are you?
long way. Bordeaux down to San Sebastian, and then
Yeah,
uh, Vitoria Gasteiz for a couple of nights as well, and then down to Madrid finally.
nice. Do you reckon you'll win?
Honestly, it's just two terrible teams, and
Well, we've been saying since I think it was probably like the round of 16 or maybe just after that, United are going to win the Europa League. There's no data that backs it up. Nothing on the eye test that backs it up. It's just they're probably going to win it.
Tottenham could win it as well, can they? It's just I feel like it's one of those.
Tottenham could win it.
It's like
United could
it's
also
gonna
win
be
it.
it's gonna be embarrassing, isn't it? In a little, I don't really know. With
I think you'll be all right.
Postecoglou just winning trophies in his second season, but then Spurs just never winning trophies, and Onana's
Yes,
never won a European final either.
something's got to give.
Yeah, Onana lost for Inter the Champions League final. He was in goal when United beat Ajax in that Europa League final as well. That might be his only two actually, but he's never won one.
Right. Anyway, that'll do. We won't see you next week. We'll see you. We won't see you the weekend after either because
Club World Cup. We'll do some of the Club
I'm
World
in
Cups.
Japan. Yeah, we'll see
Oh,
you. We'll see you when we see you.
yeah.
Cheers.